Welcome to the Further Light Podcast, presented by Wisconsin Freemasonry, helping you accomplish your Masonic goals through education and more light. And now, I present to you Brother Napoleon Sneed-Janczak. Imagine being a master mason, a physician by trade, and the highest accolades in all of Freemasonry, Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite of the Southern Jurisdiction, Grand High Priest of the York Rite, Grand Master, etc., etc., the list goes on, all within a short couple of years of being raised a Mason, and pretty much all at the same time. My name is Brother Napoleon Sneed-Janczak, and today we are going to explore the life and work of one of Freemasonry's most influential scholars, particularly in the United States, but also world-renowned, Albert G. Mackay. Albert Gallatin Mackay was born on March 12, 1807 in Charleston, South Carolina, the son of John Mackay, who lived between 1765 and 1831, who was also a physician, journalist, and educator. Albert's father published the American Teacher's Assistant and Self-Educator's Guide, containing all the rules of arithmetic properly explained, in the year 1826, largely considered the most comprehensive work on arithmetic that had been published in the United States at that time. So it is of no concern or surprise, then, that Albert Mackay would follow in the footsteps of his father, to a certain degree anyway. After completing his early education, Albert Mackay taught for some time to earn money for medical school. He graduated with honors from the medical department of the College of South Carolina in 1834. With a promising career ahead of him, he then settled in Charleston, South Carolina, where in 1838 he was appointed demonstrator or lecturer of anatomy in that institution. However, this was relatively short-lived because in 1854 he abandoned the practice of medicine altogether and really started to focus on Freemasonry and various writing. In 1841, the St. Andrew's Lodge, No. 10 in Charleston, South Carolina, initiated, passed, and raised Brother Mackay. The next year, in December of 1842, he was elected Worshipful Master of Solomon's Lodge No. 1 in Charleston, where he joined shortly after being raised. They must have seen some potential there. I can imagine that, he was just lighting up the room at that time with his enthusiasm. If you think that was fast in today's standards, he also served as Grand Secretary from 1842 to 1867, during which time he compiled all Foreign Correspondence Committee reports for the Grand Lodge. He was definitely all in and committed. During all of this, he joined the York Rite, or American Rite as we sometimes call it, and all the bodies quickly ascending to Grand High Priest of his state for 12 years consecutively, starting in 1855 and ending in 1867. However, it should be noted that he was overlapping years in his activities because he was elected General Grand High Priest in 1859 and served in that role until 1868. And if that wasn't enough, let me backtrack here a little bit, because he was also involved in commandery, where in 1844 he was elected Eminent Commander of South Carolina Commandery No. 1, and he was later honored as a past Grand Warden of the Grand Encampment of the United States. And no, we are not done just yet. You guessed it, he would petition the ancient accepted Scottish Rite in 1841, just 3 short years. And in 1844, he was crowned Sovereign Grand Inspector General of the Scottish Rite, and held this position until his death in 1881. I talk about loading your plate. I can only imagine the hunger he had, as well as the love of the fraternity and all it encompassed. I mean, he quit being a physician or medical doctor to pursue masonry and writing. Undisputedly, Albert Mackay was a man of many talents, an author, physician, and most importantly for us, a dedicated Freemason. Over the course of his life, Mackay became one of the more prominent and prolific writers highlighting the history of Freemasonry and its symbolism. But what was it that made him stand out? outside of all those achievements, why is his name still so well known among Masons today? Let's see if we can at the very least touch on some of it. Mackay, as a Masonic historian, was deeply committed to preserving and promoting the values and tenets of Freemasonry. His works provided the Masonic world with a systematic understanding of the craft as he experienced it. He wrote extensively on the symbols, rituals, and history of Freemasonry, and much like the traditions we still use today with regard to Masonic education, this served in helping Masons understand their traditions and philosophical teachings more clearly. In other words, he wanted to make it palatable to the folks that he was around at that time and to give it better understanding and kind of break the veil on some of the mystery. Now that we have an extensive background on Mackay, let's talk about some of Mackay's major works or most significant contributions. His most famous work is undoubtedly the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, which was published in 1873. This monumental work provided an in-depth look at Masonic terms, symbols, rituals, and history, creating a comprehensive resource for Masons worldwide. But that's not all. Mackay also wrote the History of Freemasonry, which became another essential text for anyone seeking to understand the development of the craft throughout the ages. I would refer you back to podcast 93 in this instance, Origins of the Craft, where we give a perspective on how his work on the ritual of Freemasonry helped to codify many of the rituals that are still in use this very day. Beyond just his encyclopedic entries, Mackay also wrote many essays and lectures on the philosophy of Freemasonry. His writings often sought to connect the principles of Masonry with universal truths, spirituality, moral lessons, and the science thereof. Mackay was not just a historian, he was a philosopher always searching for deeper meanings behind the symbols and the rituals of the craft. He spent a lot of time meditating and deliberating on such matters. So what is his legacy that we talk about so much? His lasting legacy, well, one of his greatest contributions was his ability to create a bridge between the historical, philosophical, and scientific aspects of Freemasonry, and this came at a time when the craft was evolving and expanding rapidly in the United States. Mackay provided clarity and structure. His works helped to define and preserve the Masonic tradition for future generations, ensuring that the rituals, symbols, and core teachings would not be lost over time. The Mackay Masonic Encyclopedia remains a key reference for Masons to this very day, and his impact on Masonic thought and scholarship is immeasurable. And before this episode is over, I will point out that some of his key works for you to hunt on your own to help in your journey for further light. I'd like to give you some of those resources. Mackay's own dedication to the ideals and tenets of Freemasonry, brotherly love, relief, and truth, of course, can be seen in how he lived his life. We encourage our brothers to emulate this. Well, of course, not to the extreme degree as Mackay, but the general principles he lived by and all Masons seek to attain. His commitment to education, to sharing knowledge, and to advancing the craft continues to inspire Masons around the world. And I'll pause here to encourage our newer Masons in particular, to take your time in the process of Masonic development and really take it all in. I guarantee you, I can't stress that enough, that there are individuals out there that will love to have the conversations and share their experiences with you and kind of walk you through the steps of what it is to be a good Mason and how to achieve the most out of your experience. So who's the man behind the scholar? Of course, to fully appreciate Mackay's contributions, it's important to remember the man behind the books. He wasn't just a scholar locked away in a library. He was an active participant in his community, a physician by training. Mackay spent much of his life serving others, applying the principles of compassion and service to humanity that are central to Masonic teachings, and of course, those very core values that followed the Scottish Rite. Mackay was also a deeply spiritual person, a key quality for many Masons in this era. And I would argue even today that that's an essential part of your journey through Masonry. He was a devout Christian, and many of his writings reflect his belief in the importance of spiritual growth and moral improvement. This is not that unusual, as Freemasonry was born out of this type of spirituality with the desire to explore personal growth with the volume of sacred law or holy writings. We tend to always look back before any big job that's ahead of us. His work was about much more than just intellectual study. It was about elevating the soul, strengthening the mind, and guiding Masons toward living honorable lives. So to recap just a little bit of what we talked about, if you want to learn, more about Mackay and his writings or his influence on Freemasonry, I highly recommend exploring some of his works. Whether you're a seasoned Mason or just starting your journey, there's always something new to discover. You can really go down some Masonic wonders by looking through works he has graciously spent a lot of his life producing for us. Works such as The History of Freemasonry, Its Legends and Traditions, the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, and of course, the Symbolism of Freemasonry. So as we wrap up today's episode, it's clear that Albert G. Mackay's contributions to Freemasonry are as relevant today as they were in his time. His intellectual rigor, devotion to the craft, and his desire to bring deeper understanding to Masons worldwide continue to inspire Masons of all ages. It's not surprising to me that as Mackay was going through his processes, he couldn't get enough. And I know there's some new, freshly raised Masons out there that have this kind of enthusiasm. And of course, the times are different and our schedules are pressing. But I would look at Mackay's model and just moderate it to tailor it to yourself and try and follow his pathways. Get involved with your Blue Lodge and work through the tenets of our craft. And then start to explore what some of the appendant bodies are. They may just enrich your experience. And let's just recap a little bit of what Mackay was. Mackay trained and worked as a physician, earning his medical degree in 1830 at the Medical College of South Carolina. And although his medical career was important, he did cut it short for Freemasonry and self-reflection. Mackay's involvement in Freemasonry was the most significant aspect of his professional life. He was initiated into Freemasonry in 1829, and over the years he became one of the most influential Masonic scholars of his time. Mackay was a prolific writer, and his works remain central to Masonic literature. He is quoted often and used as a foundational source to Masonry that we see today. He authored numerous books, essays, and articles. Definitely check them out. As a lecturer and educator, Mackay was also very astute at giving lectures on Freemasonry and its principles. So he took what he learned while he was in college and brought it to the craft, and we're grateful for it. He was highly regarded for his intellectual contributions to the fraternity, often sought after as a speaker at Masonic conventions and gatherings. He used his role as a lecturer to explain the deeper meanings behind Masonic symbols and rituals, linking them to the universal, philosophical, spiritual, and scientific truths. Mackay was also a public servant and was involved in various public service roles, including working as a member of the Charleston City Council and contributing to the local civil life. His work in Freemasonry was deeply intertwined with his broader civic and moral outlook, which emphasized the importance of service, education, and community, that of which all Masons strived to do. Mackay, in short, was a brilliant man. We were so lucky as Freemasons in the modern era to have a man such as Albert Mackay to guide us through Freemasonry and give us a better and broader understanding of our rituals that we still practice today. And I'm proud to be in a fraternity with such great men as Albert Mackay. That being said, thank you for joining me, Brother Napoleon Sneed-Janczak, and the entire Further Light team on your quest for more light through Masonry. Are you interested in learning more about Freemasonry in Wisconsin? Visit wisconsinmasons.org to learn more about Masonry and access further educational content and more light. Once again, that address is wimasons.org. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, please email us at education@wisconsinmasons.org. And thank you for listening.